Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Gospel on the Grind podcast. We exist to show Christians how work is important in the kingdom of God. I'm here with Deanna. Can you introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. My name is Deanna Morales, and I am a wife, mother, and owner of a boutique travel agency called Faroluna Luxury Travel.
All right. Awesome. And we're going to get into your story. So why don't you give me from the beginning to where you are now and incorporate your work and even your faith testimony into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such an important part of my story or even my business to know that I really am multicultural from the get go. So I'm Colombian, but I grew up in the United States. I moved to Colombia. I moved from Colombia to the U.S. when I was 10 years old. And when we moved to the States, we were the only Latino family in like a Polish neighborhood. And then you walked 2 blocks and then you had like Little India in Chicago. So I had all this mixture, and then like my best friend was Mexican. And so I just had this like multicultural space around me. And when I had this really special opportunity to go to Tanzania and Kenya when I was 13 years old. At such a young age, I already had such a multicultural look of the world. And then by the Lord's grace, I became a Christian when I was 16 years old. And then the Lord really took me through missions. So I was able to, I didn't even know what it was to be a missionary. I just knew that like the gospel is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me. Like Jesus is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me. And I started going to a church where people really noticed that. And so they were like, hey, do you want to go on this mission trip? Hey, do you want to go on this mission trip? And so I did missions in Nebraska, in Tennessee, and other parts of the US. And then when I was 19, I went off to Brazil to the missions. And then people in my church were like, well, how about you go to Ghana to the missions? How about you go to the Philippines to the missions? And so the Lord just like, I was just on fire for the gospel. And the Lord just like brought all of these opportunities for me to travel and to take his gospel to every ends of the earth. So I had on my bucket list, like, preach the gospel in at least 5 countries. And I think I did that within like 2 years. So from the ages of like 16 to maybe like 23, I had the opportunity to preach the gospel in a lot of places of the world. And then I got married, and my husband and I both, we knew from the get go, like, we don't come from Christian families. And so we knew, like, okay, our job is to preach the gospel. Like, we want to preach the gospel for the rest of our lives, no matter where. We don't know where, we don't know how, but that's what we're going to do. And we decided for him to do an MDiv to get theological education in Europe, in Amsterdam. So then we moved to Amsterdam, and now we are in Thailand doing ministry here. And so my life and my story, by God's grace, has really been like intertwined with travel and the immigrant experience, and kind of like the foreigner experience. And that has inspired a lot of my job in hospitality, and like my job now, which is, travel advisor. And so it's really has been like the Lord's grace to lead me through a love for travel and a love for serving others at the same time.
Awesome. And so at what point in the story does Faroluna come in?
Faroluna comes in when my husband gets accepted to Tyndale Theological Seminary in Amsterdam. And we start thinking about the future, right? And so we're like, okay, we want to be missionaries. And this is a little bit of a soapbox, but I personally think that the current model of missions is an outdated model of missions. Back in the day, it was the church sending missionaries, and the church funded those missionaries. But now we are in an era in which individuals, and several churches, but also individuals, are funding missionaries. And what you see a lot is that some things, including budget, limit the scope of what missionaries can do or how much time they can be out in the field. And so, with that kind of like idea in mind, and my husband is a finance guy. So, with that kind of idea in mind, we were like, okay, how can we be tent makers? How can we be like Paul? How can we be tent makers so that we can be as effective as we can be in the mission field? We can erase as many like things to limit us. And so I was like, well, you're going to go to school for 3 years. What am I going to do for 3 years? Because I went to school for psychology. I had a degree in psychology and child development. But because of labor laws and my visa in Amsterdam, like I knew that I couldn't do what I was trained to do. And so I had been following a travel advisor on social media for several years. I had always played with the idea in my mind. And as we thought about what we wanted in the future, we want to be missionaries. Can we be tent makers? We, if we were to have kids, I always knew that I wanted to stay home with my kids. So we wanted that too. And if we were to have kids, what can I do that can also allow me to do ministry? So those were kind of like the three things. We want to be tent makers, be support ourselves with our work. If I am a mom, I want the flexibility to raise my kids, and I want the flexibility to do ministry. So that was like when the idea of like becoming a travel advisor started, and we framed it this way precisely because of our goals. I can work from anywhere in the world. And so I don't have to be tied to, and I'm my own boss, so I don't have to be tied to a schedule or to a place. And that allows me to do ministry when I want to or when I can, and be with my son now that I'm a mother, be with my son. And so the thinking behind it and the framing behind it was, how can we find a way to support ourselves in the mission field and find a way for me to be a present mother and a present minister in the work of the kingdom.
Awesome. That's really neat and really cool. Yeah, how the Lord's brought your desires into, oh, look at this workplace, or look at this business that I can create that can really fit these other needs that I have. And we see in Paul's example, which I don't think this is what everyone has to do, but even not accepting money from people in his missions to with the Thessalonian church. And that means he had to be a worker, he had to provide. And so yeah, I mean, the being in ministry, certainly something we should look for is being a hard worker and being creative to provide for yourself if necessary. And that's for people sometimes in the field, they can provide for themselves. It doesn't always have to be that way. But also outside of the field, how can I don't have to be on the field to be part of the kingdom of God, the expansion of the kingdom of God. I can raise a ton of capital to, I mean, you can even be providing scholarships for men like your husband who are going to study for theology to become ministers. For them to say, let me like to give a scholarship opportunity to these men who want to pursue pastoral education. So, could you describe? I don't know if Faroluna has its own mission statement, but could you describe for Deanna personally, what is Deanna's personal mission statement when it comes to your aspirations and your dreams with Farluna?
That's a really great question. And I think it's not like, written anywhere, but it really does start with why I chose the name Faroluna. So it's a combination of two Spanish words. And so the word faro means lighthouse. And a lighthouse, the reason why people would put a lighthouse, on the pier or whatever, it was to guide sailors home, right? And a lighthouse shines a light to guide people home. And so I want to be able to shine the light of Jesus to guide them to their true home, which is salvation in Jesus Christ. Um, and then in kind of like a similar manner, the moon doesn't shine its own light, right? Like it just reflects the light of the sun. And so I really wanted to, like, through the way that I treat people, through the way that I serve my clients, to reflect the love and light of Jesus Christ. And so my whole, like, in merging that, I wanted to make sure that I never got lost. It's really easy. The travel industry, particularly the luxury travel industry, it's an industry where quite frankly, a lot of money moves. And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't get lost in the shine and glitter of that, but that I focus in the real shine and light and glitter of the true king, the king of kings. Um, but I also wanted to make sure that I stay true to my lifelong endless goal of shining the light of Jesus Christ, and forwarding his kingdom. And so something that I have done with Faroluna is whenever I have extra income to give, like, we find ministries that we can fund, or we ask friends like, okay, what are you working on right now? Like, what do you have? We have friends in so many parts of in so many impoverished parts of the world, that we are able to, yeah, to just be generous with that. And so my personal goal is, how can I forward the kingdom with this?
Awesome. And this is kind of a related question, but how would you define success? Because that's a pop word in business culture, and so like people want to be successful businessmen or businesswomen. So for you, how would you define success, and what is that? If I were to say, yeah, what would it look like for you to say that I've been successful? What would be your answer?
Yeah, like I said, in the travel industry, a lot of money moves. And so quite frankly, like, I think that personally for me, this is not going to be true for every mother. This is not going to be true for every travel advisor or every business owner. But here's the thing. My goal is to be a present mom and to be able to do ministry. So I'll give you an example. So my boutique travel agency has like a parents agency. You have to have a host agency. The top performer last year for my travel agency, my host agency, sorry, their top performer sold over $10 million in travel. Okay. Now, I sold nowhere near that. But if I were selling $10 million in travel every year, but I was not present with my son and I had no bandwidth to the ministry, I would be unsuccessful. That for me is an unsuccessful business for me, for my personal goals. My business, whatever it sells, like, let's put a number of it on it. If I only sell 300K in travel a year, but it allows me to be present with my son and be present when I have to do ministry, when I get to co-lead a Bible study, when I get to do something for the church, when I get to lead Sunday school, that is a successful business, right? Like, my business is successful not because of the amount of money that I get to sell and travel, but because it allows me to preach the gospel and make disciples. And in this case, the disciple is my baby, right? That's success to me. So, my husband and I have discussed this often. Like, the minute that Faroluna starts creating a lot for us, monetarily wise, but takes away from those initial goals, that's the minute that it becomes unsuccessful. And like I said, that's not for every mother. That's not for. I mean, the Lord is good and gracious. Like, He can bless every business, however many millions or whatever. But for us, for me, success is rooted in kind of like the simplicity of a life with intentionality.
Awesome. So when it comes to travel, it's a very personal experience. You shared kind of some of your experiences in travel, through your younger years. So what does it look like when you're going to start designing a travel experience for someone? What does that look like? How do you begin to turn this personal experience into something that's special to them?
Yeah, the key word here is personal, right? So it starts with, and this is where I'm super grateful for my background in psychology, because psychology really, like, is the study of people, it's the study of human behavior. And so understanding the human that's coming to me is step number one. So in order for me to turn an experience from like just the average thing that, a regular website would turn to like something really outstanding, I need to get to know this client. And so I start with, questions about themselves, what matters to them, what are some things that they like. So, to put a name to it, to give you an example, one of my clients, I love, love, love working with mothers and working with families. One of my clients, she was celebrating her son's 10th birthday in Paris. And so I was like, okay, can you tell me a little bit about him? Like, tell me what he likes. Can you, like, what is he into? What does he do? It turns out, dude's an athlete and he loves the Detroit Lions. And so we booked their hotel. She only needed me to do the hotel. She had her tours, everything. She's like, only the hotel. So what I did was I contacted the hotel and I was like, can we do like special cookies? Can we do like lion balloon colors? Like get those team colors in there. We did like a whole balloon thing. And then we did special cookies of the Lions and the Steelers because those are like the two teams that he loves. Right. And so in order for me to turn it into something special, I really need to know like those little details about each client and what are the things that they're like really going to be into. So for example, like he really loved the cookies. But if I have somebody who's like, oh, they're gluten-free or whatever, then I have to like come up with another creative way. And so it takes a lot of creativity, but especially takes a lot of like getting to know my client and their needs, their wants, their likes, their dislikes.
So really the personal aspect is a huge part of your design, is really looking at this person and finding what would really make them have a great experience.
Yes, exactly. It's trying to do like as in-depth understanding of like who they are as possible in order for me to craft something that's going to be outstanding. Because here's the thing, like every time that somebody comes to me to plan their trip, it is an honor. It is an honor. And I have to treat that and I treat that with like the utmost honor and responsibility because one, they could have chosen anybody in the world. It didn't have to be me. And two, especially if it's a family, like they are investing into what's going to be a family memory. Someday they're going to look back and be like, wow, do you remember when we went to Mexico? And they're either going to say, yeah, that really sucked. Or they're going to say, like, yeah, it was fine. Or they're going to say, like, yeah, it was awesome. I really liked when we did that tour through whatever, whatever. Right. And so I really think about, like, how are they going to look back on this experience? What are they going to say? And it's not for myself or my ego, it's for their own, like, memory making, their own experience. Because my family never got to travel when I was younger. My family was an immigrant family. Like, my parents were working. We didn't have the bandwidth or the money to do this. And so when I get families that can do this, I'm like, how can I make sure that 10 years from now, you are looking at this and like, and remember it with warmth, with care, with love. Um, so that's hugely important to me to deliver a precious family memory or to deliver a precious memory.
Gotcha. So what questions do you go through to really get to the core of that person? Like what's your strategy and your approach?
Yeah. So somebody comes to me and they're like, let's take an example. I am fresh off of like 3 conferences about African travel. So Africa's like on my mind. So let's say somebody's like, it's a family of 5. I want to take my kids to South Africa. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's get on the phone. And so we get on the phone and I ask all sorts of questions of like, tell me about, and it, kind of varies as I as this person is talking, I get an idea of like who they are and what their priorities are as. So it's like, I can get a mom. It's usually a mom. I love serving mothers. So I can get a mom and I'm like, okay, tell me about your kids. Like, what do you like? Tell me about a vacation you guys liked in the past. Tell me about a hotel you liked in the past. Um, and then as I get an idea of like, kind of like what they like, sometimes I'm like, okay, it sounds like you guys are looking for a slow experience. Am I right? Or they'll be like, yeah, they'll confirm that. I'll be like, well, but we want some tours or whatever. So it really starts with that first conversation. And I mold my questions as I get to like understand who this person is and like their why for their trip. Why are they planning this? What do they want out of it? How are we going to achieve that, right? Like whose decision, like whose mind do we have to take into consideration when we make decisions? Like, is it only mom and dad? Is it the kids too? Do we have an autistic child? Do we have a disabled child? Do we have a baby that we need to consider? All of these things, right? And it's not just families that I work with, right? Am I talking to a business executive? Business executive, I'm not going to be with that guy on the phone for half an hour because they are they are quick, they are effective, they have things to do, they get to the point. And so it's like, with business executives, like very rapid fire, they want efficiency. And so I start working on that. Like, how can I make this call as efficient as possible while also getting to like the core of what you want as much as possible? So that first, I call the initial call, like that's like a first date. Like there's a lot of pressure on that call, because that's when you're gonna know, like, are we gonna have a second date or are we not? Like they get to know me, I get to know them. That's going to start the entire relationship. And so I really try to, as much as possible, to be as effective while getting to know them as much as I can.
Awesome. So, what has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned as you've been doing this when it comes to learning to serve a client well? Because as Christians, we want to serve other people, and in business, in the back of our head should be love God and love your neighbor. And this is what separates the Christian, the truly authentic Christian worldview in the workplace from a non-Christian worldview in the workplace, is that we have an impetus to say, I want to do well to this person, not only to receive money for it. It's not wrong to want to receive money, and we should want to provide more capital than less capital, because I can do more with that money. I can bless people. There's things we can enjoy with it. There's nothing wrong with pursuing wealth for the right reasons. But and just to think about all that you can do for the kingdom of God with that money. But that's not the only impetus for me to want to serve someone well, because I want to love my neighbor. So if I'm serving them, if I'm truly going to be Christ-like in my work, because Christ was a worker.
Yeah.
Christ was a carpenter at one point.
Yeah.
And like, I dare anyone to imagine Christ as a carpenter who did not want to do a good job for his clients. We can't imagine that, because
Yeah.
Jesus, like, he perfectly fulfilled the law and was serving his neighbors and loving his neighbors. And so you're serving, you want to love your neighbor. And so that's a big part of of our worldview in the workplace is, how do I serve this person well and actually love them and see their needs? So as you're doing this, this is for you, it's not just someone coming in and saying, like, make this kind of table. You're really oftentimes, especially with the more personal ones, less on the business side, you're really trying to cater something to their personal desires, who they are. So I'm sure you've learned a lot about what it means to serve a client well and to really listen well and to hear them. So what are some lessons you can give us from learning to serve a client well?
Yeah. I think the biggest lesson, honestly, has been that, like, not putting them in a box and just letting myself also, like, be surprised by who they are, and in those little moments where, like, you really get to see their character. And so, for example, I'll be honest, like my most affluent traveler, and I say this story all the time because I still think about it and the beauty of his priorities. Um, my most affluent traveler ever, they were planning a family trip to Orlando. And so they wanted a hotel, and I was like, great. The Four Seasons Orlando is amazing. Four Seasons is a world renowned brand, excellent with kids. Their kids amenities are phenomenal. Um, and so I like proposed that one, and he came back to me and he was like, "Oh, but what about this one?" And it was literally this guy can afford to buy out the Four Seasons Orlando, right? Money is not a problem. But he came back to me with a $200 a night Marriott hotel. And I was like, why? Why would this guy come back? Like, why does someone who deeply cares about service, and I'm looking for that at the Four Seasons, like, why would this person come back to me for that? And so I asked the question. I was like, sure, I can book that. Like, can I know why? Um, And he said, "Oh, my kids looked up videos of their, like, water slides on YouTube and they love them. So that's the one that my kids want to stay at." And I'm like, and it shocked me. It surprised me. Like, what a beautiful reason. What a beautiful priority. Um, and so like that's kind of, yeah, like it just that staying on top of like the shock factor and not putting them in these boxes of like, well, because you are an affluent traveler, you're gonna want a certain kind of or a certain level of service. I'm like, yeah, that's true, but he's also a dad. And he's a dad who deeply cares about the needs and wants of his kids. And so like he didn't care to sacrifice service or whatever it was because you know what his kids wanted? His kids wanted really cool water slides. And so that has kind of been like the biggest lesson, letting myself be surprised by who my clients are and meeting them there. And so, like, with this guy, not pushing for, yeah, I mean, it would have been a great booking for me, but like not pushing for that because that wasn't his priority. His priority was, how can I give my kids the best vacation for them, not focusing on me or my wife, like for them. Look, they want cool water slides, that's where we're gonna go stay, right? And so that has been one of my biggest lessons, like focusing, seeing, letting myself get surprised and seeing like, okay, what's gonna be their priorities for this specific trip? Because it changes trip by trip. Doesn't just change client by client. I find that it also changes trip by trip. So yeah.
Okay, so on that shock factor and that kind of surprise, the surprise of a client, you might not always expect things. So, what is one part of this work that going into this you wouldn't have expected to be a big part, but something that really actually matters a lot with a lot of clients when it comes to creating a personal experience? Was there something in particular or more than one thing that surprised you and like, oh, I didn't think that would be a big deal to somebody when it comes to creating the ideal travel experience, but surprisingly it is.
I think in general, something that surprised me, not necessarily like on the client side, but I mean, it is the client side because it's also deeply integrated. I did not realize how important partner relationships are. Like, I did not, coming in this, I did not realize how important it is for me to know the director of sales of a hotel, the sales manager, the manager. I did not realize how important it is to stay on top of those things, to go to industry events, to network with these people. I can book that hotel, I can book that tour, I can book that cruise, but these are the people that when my clients get there, these are the people that are going to be taking care of my clients. And so, knowing like going to industry events, staying on top of things, getting to know these guys, that's going to be hugely important because we know each other. So when my client gets to that hotel, they're going to be treated in a specific way. They're going to be treated like VIPs because they know me. We've had lunch together. Like the director of sales, like we've had lunch together. They're going to put me in contact with the reservations team. The reservations teams know that like, oh, hey, this is somebody that has brought important business to us. Same with like the tour companies. In the travel industry, we have something called domestic management companies, DMCs for short. And sometimes we use a DMC for somebody on the ground. So let's say that I have clients heading to Greece. So they want full itinerary, they want full service, they want transfers, everything. In order to create a seamless experience, I might reach out to a destination management company who is an extension of my team and be like, hey, can you guys be in charge of my clients, the entire time that they are in Greece? And it's important for me to know that DMC, to know the owner, to know the salespeople, so that they know exactly like who I am. So all the networking, the travel industry, as much as it is a sales industry, it is a people industry. It is a network industry. It's a relationship industry. The relationships that I have with hotels, with tour companies with like those things matter, and that will elevate the experience of my clients. If I have this, she's not my client, but like I always think about her with this example. I know somebody, she's allergic to chocolate, all right? Let's say she's going to Belgium and she's staying at the Sofitel in Belgium. Let's say she wants to book this through, I don't know, booking.com or whatever, which is fine. No shame in the game. I've used booking.com, no problem. But if you want a more personalized experience, you know, I can tell the director of sales and the reservations team to tell the welcome team that, like, hey, she's allergic to chocolate. I know that you guys, because you're in Belgium, I know that you put chocolate as a welcome treat. Can we do something else? Because if you put chocolate as a welcome treat for her, it's useless. She can't eat it. Right? And so that's how I get to go beyond and personalize the experience, like looking for those little things and looping in the teams that already know me. So like 2 weeks ago, I was in Bangkok and I got to meet like the sales department of like 3 different hotels. So I went and I toured the hotel. And now like they know my face, I know their face. I have their email, they have my email. They know exactly like how to treat my clients because they know me personally. And I know that my clients are going to get that elevated level of service and that like extra care and VIP treatment because we have that connection.
So it's a lot of it is about who you know. Like that's a big part of your job.
Yeah. And not so much just like who you know, but also realizing that like these people are part of your team. They're the reservations team, the sales team, they are in your corner and they're in your client's corner. And it's important for you to be in that corner as well.
Gotcha. So so how do you go from starting on the ground? Maybe you've got no connections to these teams. So how do you build your team?
That's a great question. I am part because of where I am in my business and because of um the host agency that I am a part of. I just have easy access to contacts. And so um I am a virtuoso travel advisor. Virtuoso is a large consortia in the travel industry, primarily focusing on luxury travel. And because I am a virtuoso travel advisor, I just have access to quite literally, like you can think of like hundreds of hotels and people. Like I have access to those emails. I have access to the director of sales, the sales team, the reservation team. Like I, yeah, I have points of contact. And so that's how you start. So if I have booked, let me think of a recent one. Okay, so I have clients in Peru right now, right? And we booked a Belmont hotel for them. So if once I book that hotel, the first thing that I do is I email that team. I email that person and I'm like, hey, my clients are coming from this day to this day. These are the perks we can add. We booked this reservation with like 100 resort credit, breakfast included, late checkout, early check-in, all these things, all these extra perks that clients get booking with me. And I'm like, this is who I am. This is who my clients are. Can we ensure that? And then we go into like, how can we personalize the stay? Can we add a bottle of wine? Can we add a welcome amenity? Can we add a note? All of this. So it really starts even as soon as that booking gets done, I start that relationship.
Awesome. So you shared kind of towards the beginning about some of your own like cultural experiences. Is there any examples of your experiences shaping the way that you thought about travel for somebody's personal travel experience?
Yeah, I gotta say, I give so much credit here to not just my Colombian culture and the side of like the area of Colombia that I come from, but my grandparents and the house that shaped me while I was in Colombia. Um, my grandparents are my grandfather passed away, but my grandmother's still alive. They are the most hospitable people I've ever met. Quite literally, like to give you a ridiculous example, there was a woman that needed a place to stay for one night at my grandmother's house. And then it turned into 2 nights. and then it turned into a month. And before you knew it, that woman was there without paying rent for 7 years, which is crazy. And then one time, my mother asked my grandmother, like, but didn't she give you like anything? And my grandma was like, oh, yeah, she bought me a pair of earrings one time. Like, that is the level of like crazy hospitality that I was used to. Like, I grew up in that house every day seeing people. My grandparents, and this is a very Colombian thing of that era, of that time, the door was open. Like, the door was quite literally open all day. And so anybody could come in, and whoever came in had a meal, had a warm conversation, had a warm, like, little cup of espresso, which is a very Colombian thing. And so it's not just the fact that I come from a side of Colombia where like the guest is king. It's like that high hospitality. It's also, I come from a family, from grandparents, where that was huge. And so when I have a client, I'm like, okay, how can I match that level? How can I create this phenomenal experience for you? But it's also, quite frankly, not just about the clients, right? It's about, looking on the Christian side, how can I work us unto the Lord, right? Like, if this person was God himself asking me to plan a trip for him, right? Like, would I give him this? Like, would I give him like some mid experience? Like, no, I would plan the best trip in all creation for the God of all creation, right? And so I really think about that. Like, I want, I want the Lord to bless the work of my hands, but I want that work to be worth it and to be good. And I want to be the best advisor that I can be for that client. And so I do a lot of things to try and match that, and recently has been a lot of training. Travel advisors need a lot of training. It's I love this industry because it's constantly changing and there's so many things to learn, and I'm quite a nerd actually. um and so it's a lot of, like I said, like, I just went like 3 weeks of meeting new suppliers for Africa. And so it's meeting new suppliers. It's um with the old suppliers, like, do they have any new training? Especially cruises. Cruises do a lot of like new training, right? Like, how can I know more about that? My bread and butter is really hotels. And so, like, how can I know more about this hotel, what the hotel is offering currently? So matching that high level of service. And that comes to with like my deliverables and being on time. If I say, hey, you're gonna have an itinerary in 2 days, you're gonna have an itinerary in 2 days. There's been a few times where, like, I am a mom. I am a mom and my baby comes first. And so there's been a few times that I'm like, I'm so sorry, my baby was sick, my baby was teething or whatever. And so I'm a little bit late. But generally I make that really clear. Like, I will deliver when I say I will deliver, unless, something happens.
That's awesome. And that's another thing that I think is so central to the Christian work ethic is a desire for excellence, not just for the sake of it turns a good profit. Like, being excellent in our work, it should result in a good profit. But the Christian worldview, though, we have an impetus as well for excellence in uh, serving God and for glorifying God. God did not make a mid creation. God made an amazing creation. And so we reflect God, and we're made in his image. Part of that being made in his image is God is a creator, and we build things, we create things, we create children, God uses us to we take things in his creation and we build on top of it. And so yeah, God has made us to do things like that. And are we reflecting him well? Kind of like you mentioned the moon reflects the light of the sun. Are we reflecting well the glory of our creator if we're building things that are just not all that excellent? They're not all that spectacular. We should be
Yeah.
building things that are excellent, spectacular, that show like the glory of God's creation, and also in service. So not just in building things, but also in serving people, doing that with excellence. And
Yeah.
and doing it because the work is something that we enjoy, something that's good. And so, and this is to brag on my culture too. The In America, this is one of the things that's made America so prosperous is we started out with it was Christians coming to this nation saying, taking off of the some of the principles of the Reformation and
Right.
saying, how do we apply this to all of life? And really, those Puritans, separatists, pilgrims, these groups, particularly you had the Puritans saying, let's apply this to all of life.
Yeah.
And part of that is the different spheres, the church, the family, the state, and also business, the serving of their family and providing for their family. And so what does it happen when you take this worldview of work is something that I can glorify God with? It's not less than ministry when it comes to how I can glorify God. It's actually equivalent in a way that I can glorify God. I can glorify God just as much doing work as I can doing ministry because they're both sanctified callings. They both can be used for the kingdom of God. That understanding, I think, revolutionized our country. I think it revolutionized our country and built it. And because you have Christians who are doing excellent work. And so the Christian worldview, when it takes root in a country, it's not like, okay, either you have people who do really well in their job or you have a Christian culture. Sometimes you can have excellence apart from the Christian worldview, but for sure, though, when the Christian worldview does take root, you do see excellence in work. You do see excellence in business. Even culturally, when it's just expected to do excellence, we can't just act like that happened out of nothing. For us in America, a lot of that's because we've been cultured for our culture has been taught for so long these Christian values, these Christian principles to serve well. I mean, it didn't come out of nowhere. So yeah, I think excellence is a huge
Yeah, to interject there too, one thing, I'm like very active on Instagram and I share about business, but I also share about my life. And every single one of my clients knows that I am a Christian. It's very clear. And so it's also the desire to be excellent at this and to provide for them is also because I deeply care for these people. I deeply care for these clients. And my desire for every single one of my clients is for them to come to know the Lord Jesus as their savior. That's my desire for every single person in the world. And so it's also like, how can I serve you in the best way possible so that you see Christ in me and that and they know that I'm a Christian. And so the other side of that is like I care for them and so I care for their experiences. And what clients don't see is like that moment when I'm freaking out of like, did I plan the right things? Is this okay? Is this gonna be a trip that they hate? Like, you have this like you get cold feet. It's like when people talk about cold feet before the wedding, like you get cold feet before the trip and you're like, you rethink all of your choices. You're like, I planned the worst experience ever. They're going to hate this. And you freak out. And it's not even like about my own ego. It's like they've invested so much time and money in this. Like I want them to have the best experience ever. And it's because I care for them deeply. And so it's also that it's like I care each one of my clients, like, I really care about them and I want the best for them. And part of that is, can I serve them in the best way?
awesome. You talked a little bit about kind of market demographics that you serve. Who do you feel like you best equipped to serve, and that you really get the most out of working with? And I know that can be like you're going to have a lot of broad clients and stuff, but where do you really thrive and tend to see like, oh yeah, I really enjoy and I can really connect well with these clients?
Yeah. So before I joined the travel industry, I studied psychology in school and I studied child development. And it's funny because in a way that I didn't know, um, I just spent a lot of time with kids. When I had to do community service hours in high school, I did them at like a daycare. And when I had to do certain things, it was, and then I served in Brazil at an orphanage. And then in order to pay for college, I babysat and I nannied. And then I did Sunday school and then I taught the youth group. And then there were always kids. And so, when coming into this industry, I was like, I would really love to serve moms. I would really love to serve, yeah, I would love to serve mothers. Because what happens a lot of times with trip planning is that Dad is busy working. This is not every scenario. This is just, what I see most of the time. Dad is busy working. And either mom is taking charge of the trip or dad is like, you know, I'm going to take this over, but I don't have time to plan this. So can you do it? Or mom is like, I'm really overwhelmed. I don't know what to do here. Can you help me? In either scenario, I'm serving moms. In either scenario, I'm serving the family. And so if mom is in charge of planning the trip, a lot of times what happens is that mom gets overwhelmed. It becomes a hassle for her. I mean, the trip still happens. And moms, because mothers are amazing, the mom makes this beautiful, magical experience, but it ends up a lot of times not being beautiful and magical for her, but beautiful and magical for the family. And so I want to take that off of mom's plate and be like, hey, you're raising your kids, you have a job, you have a household. Give me this. I can do this. This is what I can do. How can I serve you in this? And so I really love working for mothers, because I want to give moms the opportunity to just like relax and enjoy, just pack your bags, get to that place and just enjoy family and not worry about the hassle, the details, the reservations, none of that. So that's really like where I love to um, to surf. I do a lot of couples as well, and I love that as well. But the place where I really that really warms my heart is serving mothers to make sure that they can enjoy their children and their spouses on a beautiful vacation. And like I said, that's going to become a family memory. And so I want the kids and the dad to say, yeah, that was awesome. But I want mom to also say, that was awesome, and not remember all the stress of planning it.
Gotcha. And for those people who are deciding, like, should I use a travel agent before? Or someone maybe could be listening to this and like, I've never used a travel agent before. Like, I've never used a travel agent before. So what would you say to somebody as to like, if they're like, should I use one or not? What's your questionnaire that you'd say, well, here's what you need to, if for this to fit in your box, here's what would be the qualities of, your desires or your goals or your whatever. So what would you want them to know about the difference that a travel agent can make, and when and why they should, want to have a travel agent?
Yeah. You want to use a travel agent because you have important assets. You have time, you have energy, you have work, you have all these assets are important in your life. And you want to figure out where your energy is going to go. And I can be an asset to that, right? Like you don't have to sacrifice your time researching the limited scope of things. We are all busy with life. The limited scope of things that you don't have to sacrifice that. That's on me. So not only do you get your time back because you don't have to research everything, you get your energy back because you don't have to worry and stress about things, right? You also, at the end of the day, you have someone in your corner. You have somebody who's going to advocate for you with the hotels to make sure that you have an excellent experience. And you have somebody, like when something goes wrong, you have somebody in your corner who's going to advocate for you. And the thing about travel is amazing, but it's also like incredibly unpredictable. Um, and I think 2026 so far has shown that. It started with civil unrest in Mexico. Okay, what do we do now? Right? Like I had clients, thankfully none were in Mexico, but I had clients going to Mexico. So it's like, all right, we're about to cancel those reservations and rebook something else. Um, and then it was like, okay, the war in the Middle East. Like, all right, well, now you're stuck in the Middle East. What do we do about that? And then now it's TSA. So I had to like check in with all my clients and be like, look, I'm keeping an eye on the situation. Like, here's what we can do. You you have an extra pair of eyes, ears, hands, everything, because you have me, or you have, an advisor in your corner. And a good advisor is always going to go to bat for you. Always. Assuming, unless you're unreasonable, right? Like, um, But that's also like a big part of our job is getting you to a point where like we can give you the best experience possible, and matching you like with the right suppliers for that.
Awesome. Yeah. And, I'm assuming everyone knows you're not doing this for mob bosses or mafia members. You're not you're not
Not that I
traveling.
know of.
Yeah. Is that your first question is, are you affiliated with any cartel or mafia or gangs or yeah. Yeah. So what kind of trips are maybe that you're looking forward to? Or if you want to tell a story of like, this was just an amazing trip that I just like, this was like the dream experience of planning this personal trip. What are tell some, story of an exciting trip that you have planned or that you're planning to plan?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's such a great question. Well, I'll go
You
with
can
the
give
one
more
that's
than
on.
one too. Yeah. You don't have to give just,
um, I'll go with the one that's on my mind right now. And again, I'm like sweating here because I'm like, I hope they like it. But I have a family of four, um, very, very like busy high executives, and their daughters in Peru right now. And this is like these are like really well traveled clients. And this is like milestone trip for her. They um she's celebrating 50 years, so she just turned 50, and so they wanted to like go to Peru, and they are doing Machu Picchu. They're like, going to be in Cusco. They're doing like all of these things, but then they're also doing something that I find super unique. They're doing a river cruise for like through the Amazon rainforest. So that one was a lot of fun to plan. It's also like super nerve wracking because the entire time I'm like, I hope it works out, like, but here's what people don't realize about trips like that. Like this trip, it's only 10 days, but we have been planning this trip since last March. And it wasn't like, okay, we planned it, we booked it, we're done. It was like, we planned it, we booked it. And then I had several touch points with my DMC, with my destination management company of like, how are we going to get all of this like put together? How are we going to get like, just give them the best experience possible? So that was like a really fun one to plan because Peru is also like it also depends on the destination, right? Like Peru is like expansive. Like people don't realize how much cool stuff there is in Peru. There's like this city in the middle of the desert, and there's the mountain with seven colors, and you're like, oh, I could send you in so many different directions. And there's like these little other places that like nobody knows about, and and so you're like, how can I give you? So it's also thinking like, how can I give them a snapshot of this country in 10 days? Um, so yeah, so like that was like a really unique one of like they get to, uniquely go through the Amazon rainforest on a riverboat, which is really a really cool way of doing it. I've been in the Amazon rainforest, and so like seeing it from the river is a really special experience. So that's the one that's like on my mind. I mean, I would love to get I it's funny because when I lived in Europe, I think people thought that, like, I was, like, the Europe girl, and so I started, like, planning a lot of Europe, and a lot of good came out of that. Like, one client they were going to the south of France, and she had, like, a specific vision in mind of what she wanted a beach club with, like, a specific vision. She wanted it, like, off a cove, basically, and I was like, how can I'm gonna find this. Either it doesn't exist or there's gonna be a way for me to find it, and by God's grace, like I found it. And she was like, and they did several beach clubs, and she was like, this was our favorite one. Like this was the best one that we did. And I'm like, okay, praise the Lord. And every single time I'm like, praise the Lord. Because it is the Lord who goes before me, and it is the Lord who makes these experiences like work well. But I would, so yeah, so I've like become the Europe girl. I would love to book more Africa. I love Africa for a lot of reasons. I have been privileged enough to do missions. I've been privileged enough to do missions in a few countries in Africa, but I've also been privileged to been in like every corner of Africa. So I've been in countries in northern, southern, eastern, and western Africa. Um, and so I love the continent, and it was the first continent that I really got to travel to, right? Like I went when I was 10, I moved to the United States, but then when I was 13, I got this opportunity to go to Kenya and Tanzania. And other than that, other than like moving to the States, I had never been out of the country. I had never been in a plane like by myself without my parents. And so that experience, and I went with with a group of kids from the US and Canada, and our intention, um, I don't know if they even exist anymore, but it was like Leaders Today and Me Too We. This company, I wasn't a Christian yet, right? But like the intention of this company was to serve the Masai Mara community. So we went with the intention of serving. And that was my first interaction with the continent of Africa was I'm going to go serve you. And there's discussions about, you know, all sorts of things there. But as a 13-year-old little girl, that was so special. And I fell in love with the continent then. And so I love selling Africa because to me, it feels like giving back to a place that I love. Because really, when you travel to these places, you are supporting those local communities. If you are at a safari lodge, you are supporting mothers, fathers, you are supporting people from small villages that are making sacrifices to provide for their families. And they're not all from small villages, of course, but you are bringing capital into places that really need it. So I would love to be able to plan more safaris. I have all the training. I'm like ready. I'm like I said, I just trained for like 3 weeks, like, all things Africa, East Africa, North Africa, like all things Africa. So I'm like ready for it. I just now need to pray that the Lord brings people who want to go on safari.
Yeah,
And also like, not just safari, like Africa's massive and Africa has all sorts of things. You can do like wildlife experiences, but you also have like these like beautiful cities, and then you have the desert up north. So like it's just there's so much, it's so varied. So yeah.
that's super neat. So you're right now you're in Thailand. So how are you incorporating? You told me a little bit. How are you incorporating on the side? You're a mother. That's kind of your main discipleship area, and then you've got this business. You're helping, raise some, make some bread for the fam, and then
Yeah.
you also have this ministry opportunity here in Thailand. So share some about what you shared with me about the group of people that you're particularly serving here in Thailand, or that you have your heart set on.
Yeah. So the reality of being a young mother is that my main ministry is in my home. My husband has gotten to like he preaches at our church. He has more opportunities at our church than I do. But what I actually have found, and it's it's really like, gosh, it's so beautiful to see the Lord meet me in this season. Because the way that I always served at church before, and I did it all. Like I was, I don't come from a Christian family. And so when I became a Christian and when the Lord was gracious enough to open my eyes, like I just wanted to do it all. So I did missions, I did Sunday school, I did Awana, I was a greeter, I was in the prayer team. I did a million things. And so like I was always used to serving in a million different capacities. But I have a baby now. And so like I can't there's things that I just can't do within the church that I could do before. So for example, like I can't do youth group because youth group starts at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. is when we're starting to wind down that boy so that he goes to bed. Um, I can't do Sunday school because well, that's not true. I am about to do Sunday school. We figured out a way, but for a while, I couldn't because it was like, oh, how am I going to do this when I'm wrangling my 1-year old? Um, and so the Lord, in all his goodness and grace, what he did was that, like in Thailand, I don't know how this isn't a thing everywhere in the world. In Thailand, the international schools host playgroups, and it's a win win for everybody. You go for 2 hours in the morning, the kids play, the parents chat, the school gets free advertising, free marketing. And so I have met a lot of moms through that. And I've made a great community of mothers through that. And so I am able to just share who I am, share why we're here, share what matters to me, share the gospel. That I have one of my neighbors who is Vietnamese, and Vietnam is uh, they don't have a religion. And so she has a lot of questions about Christianity. And I get to sit down with her and really realize like how much I even take for granted living in spending most of my time in countries are at least theistic. Like she asked me, is there reincarnation in Christianity? And I never thought of like, oh, there's people that like don't know about the resurrection, like this like super basic thing of our faith. And so my ministry has actually been with my friends and just living life with them, chatting about chatting about our problems, chatting about my worldview. Yeah, even like, I know that, one of my best friends here, like, I know she's not a believer, but telling her, like, look, I know you're going through rough stuff. Like, I'm praying for you. Um, and so coming alongside moms and walking beside them and getting to share who I am and, who, brought me here, who was Jesus. And that's where I have found a lot of my ministry. So it has been very different than how I usually do ministry, but it's been beautiful to see the Lord meet me here and to see the Lord use my son. So my son's name is Luca, which is very similar to you.
Oh,
And
good
my
name.
yeah. um, and his, kind of like the meaning of his name is also like the bringer of light and truth. His middle name means truth. Um, but my son, it's amazing to see the Lord use my son to kind of like find ways for me to do ministry here. Like Thai people love kids. And so my son opens so many opportunities for conversations because, they'll come, they'll interact with him and he loves people. So he'll smile at them. um, and so it's really great to see the Lord use this season of life that I am in and still give me opportunities to preach the gospel in a unique way that I did not have access to before.
Hmm. And what I love about your story and what you're doing is as a follower of Christ, knowing that God has not called men and women to serve in the same ways. Like we don't believe in androgynous faith, where it's like, you know, there's no distinction between the way God has designed a man and a woman. We have different talents, we have different skills, we have different roles. And so God gave, Adam the shovel, till the garden, and he gives him Eve to help him. And so now what's interesting is, I think first what we have to get correct is, what is the role of, God's providing for, or God's roles for men and women. God has made the man to be the provider, the one who goes out and does the hard things. I mean, he's the protector of his home. And but what you don't have there is you don't have the wife say like, sitting in the sand saying like, "Oh, you go, you do it. Yeah, you just like," she is cheering him on. But part of how she cheers him on is by like, how can I effectively serve your mission? How can I effectively help you in your goals? And she's good at it.
Mm,
Like the Proverbs 31 woman, she's good at what she's doing. It's not What's amazing is it's not to the neglect of your home. Like you're not doing it to the neglect of your home, which is, obedient to, like God has said the in Titus, he desires, or the woman is to be working at home. And so what does that look like to be working at home, but also providing for this mission? And you see that in the Proverbs 31 woman she's entrepreneurial. She knows how to serve her family and how to also bring in some extra capital to serve the mission of the household. So, I love seeing what you're doing, and this is the neat thing that I hope listeners will hear this, and especially mothers, is that the doors that God has opened with remote work. It's pretty incredible
yeah.
because there's a lot of missions opportunities for that. There's a lot of ways to fulfill your role as a mother, which is nurturing your children, being there for your children, and working at home. while you can also you can do a lot of cool stuff. I mean, you can be working across the world while staying in this one place. You can be in Thailand and you can be serving people across the world. And there's so many, and even for fathers now, and even fathers often have the opportunity to work remotely and to be able to pour into their children more. So it's a beautiful because that's how
Yeah.
it used to be. It didn't used to be where uh, back in the early days of America, for instance, it wasn't the dad would go 30 miles away to go work at a farm. That his workplace was around his home largely.
Yeah.
And, he would train
Yeah.
that's the education that often would be provided to the sons and the daughters. The sons follow dad and they know how to they learn what dad does, and the daughters follow mom and they learn what mom's doing. Remote work is a gift to, the economy right now from the Lord because it can really help us to restructure towards a biblical model of the household. So what were you gonna say?
Yes, I was gonna add something too. I think it was like a year before I became a mother, a year before I got pregnant. It was maybe like 8 months before I got pregnant. I was at this beautiful conference, women's conference, and we kind of went through like the Proverbs 31 women, and they just told us kind of like, go read the chapter on your own and like write down everything that you can see. And I noticed too like how she was quite an industrious woman. Like she's quite an industrious woman. She is, she's a businesswoman as well. She's a seller, she's creating things, she's creative, she's business oriented, she's an entrepreneur. Um and so, but I also think that like, and I love that and I'm grateful for that. And I think that a lot of times, a lie that we tell Christian women, though, is like, you can do it all. Like, you can have it all. You can be all like, be this boss babe. Like, you can do everything. And it leaves moms even more like just burnt out and sad and feeling like, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not a great mother. And so there's also this opportunity to be like, no, how can I be this and be like her but in my own way, and it doesn't have to be this specific way. Like, I'm really grateful for this business, but I do not work 40 hours a week because that would not put me in a good position with my son. And so it's also this like, how can we shape these opportunities that are given to us but without the pressure that we have from society to be like this like amazing like do it all, mother. Like it's quite frankly like not a reality for every mother, and it's not every mother's desire either. um so that was something that, you know that I thought of with her, with this Proverb 31 woman. Is like, what does that look like for each mother, and how can we reassure each mother of like, you are in a world that constantly tells moms you're not good enough, right? How can we reassure mothers of like, you are doing the best that you can for your family, and how can we get you to that point? And so I'm really grateful that this business gives me that opportunity of like, I really feel like there's some days like I was just talking about this, like, man, my baby has been in the 18-month sleep regression. And so he decides at 3 a.m. that it's a great time to play. And I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? So it's like from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. And so I'm like, we go to bed at 5 a.m. And so there's hard days where like you're juggling raising a child and running a business, and they don't always win both at the same time, but you try to honor both at the same time. So what does that look like for me to honor my business and to honor my baby at the same time? And some days it means I honor my baby first. And some days it means, well, I always honor my baby first, but some days it means, oh, I actually like, I can send him with his dad. I can have like all this time to do this, but there's days when like he just needs his mother first. And so really, I want moms, the reason why I say all of this, because I want moms to hear me and say like, don't have to do it all and you don't have to be this like, you know have it all, do it all kind of mom, right? You just do whatever the Lord has put in front of you. And and I love this business and I'm really grateful for this business, but the minute that, it interferes with my mothering, um, that's the minute that it has to go because I'm a mom first and a businesswoman second. Um, and that's not going to be the case for every mother, but I want moms to hear that you can just do what God puts in front of you, and you don't have to. You can be industrious in your own kind of way. It doesn't have to look a specific way. But I am really grateful that today in today's world, remote work is possible for moms. And I am all for any mom that comes to me because I have had friends who are like, "So how do I become a travel agent?" I'm like, "Girl, I will tell you because I am all for moms being present and being able to stay at home with their little ones if that is what they want, if that is what they choose." Um, yeah, I would love for yeah, I love to give um kind of like that idea to mothers who want that. It's hugely important.
I would challenge listeners to find a time in history where, uh, or find a culture that's heavily influenced by Christian values that decides that, the way that God designed the home is for not parents to primarily raise their children, but for the state to do that, or for like where we're not family focused. Because
Yeah.
I think an important place for us to go to is, I mean, it comes down to, who do you want to disciple your kids, and who has God designed to disciple our kids? And that should influence the way we view the workplace, not just for mothers, but also fathers. For fathers, if there's the most you can be involved with your family is going to be the best thing that you can do. It's going to be, you want to be as involved with your family as possible. If you're still able to provide for them, there's things you have to consider there. But but yeah, when has there been a time in history where people have really thrived and we've honored the Lord in discipling our children, where for most of their education and their discipleship, it's not us doing it? Because in Deuteronomy 6, the Lord is saying to the people of Israel to teach your children to love the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And he lists the ways to do that. And you realize it's an all day process. It's like when you rise up, there's when you go, when you're I think it's out in the field, maybe. Like, just the point is, it's all over the place, all throughout the day. How are you going to do that if you're not with your kids for most of the day? And how is a mother, when Paul says to be working at home, how is a mother going to do that if her work literally prevents her from working at home and really tending to her children? So the goal is, the world's going to sell this picture of, this is what fatherhood looks like. This is what motherhood looks like. This is what parenting looks like. And right now, what's being sold a lot is, really, you guys aren't the qualified people to parent. That's not true. I mean, we should be the ones parenting our children. Um, I say this as I don't have children, but the but biblically speaking, I'm just the messenger of what God's word says. Biblically speaking, God has made mothers and fathers to be qualified for the instruction of their children, and for teaching them, for raising them up. So the question is, how can we do that effectively for mothers to say, how can I work at home and be home oriented, but also not to say, like, let me just do the bare minimum. Like, for men and women, be ambitious. If you can push yourself harder, which it's hard as a mom, it's a draining field to work in. But if you have that extra energy, you'll say, like, let me push myself, and let me, might mean that I don't get as much sleep. But if I can raise more money, then why would, that's, hey,
Yeah.
yeah, let's give an applause for that.
And I'm really grateful that, like, that's my situation. I mean, I only have 1 kid. I don't have 4, I don't have 6. I have 1 kid. I have a husband who thankfully has a lot of time to be able to stay with our son. And so, I work whenever I can. And sometimes that means I'm working from 8 p.m. until 1 in the morning, right? But I can do that because I only yeah. I mean,
Sounds like a
I
college
literally
student lifestyle.
I know, back to my college days, basically. I mean, I have calls. Sometimes I have calls. Somebody's like, "Can we talk at 2 p.m.?" And I'm like, "Sure, it's 2 a.m. for me, but no problem." So I really like, I work a lot of American hours, and so that means a lot of like late nights for me. But I'm super grateful that I am in that position where I can do that. Like I have the bandwidth for that. I It's one way that I see, you know, me serving my family properly and me serving the Lord properly is, not staying idle when I have the ability to do more. And it's okay if that changes with more kids. Like if we have more kids and I no longer have the bandwidth for a business, that is okay too. But right now, I'm super grateful to be in a position where I have the bandwidth for all of this, and it serves my family and it serves the Lord. And so it's really just a beautiful, um and it also like speaks to my talents and my joys. And I, not to toot my own horn, but like I feel like I'm good at what I do, right? And so like it it brings out honor to the Lord by honoring my talents as well. So it's just this beautiful mesh of like, being in an exciting position to be able to do it all.
So for the inspiring entrepreneurial woman who's saying they look up to you and they're like, maybe they're just coming out of college or they're, an adult and they're like, I want to, get married and I want to do something like what she's doing. It could be travel, HC, or it could just be more broadly. It could be just this more tech age, remote work kind of idea. But as an entrepreneurial woman and, you know, what advice would you give to someone or maybe if you could go back and talk to yourself when you're younger, tips, tricks, advice, skills, talents, ways to hone your talents. What advice would you give?
The first advice I would say is just start. Just start. Every I think, don't quote me on this, but I think every entrepreneur ever has made mistakes. And they are comfortable with that. I was like super uncomfortable making mistakes. And then I met more entrepreneurs and realized entrepreneurs are not afraid to make mistakes. And they know that when you start, you're not going to know it all. You're just not going to know it all. So I have made plenty of mistakes in this, but the important part is to just start. Like the mistakes are part of the process. They are part of the learning. But just start. Once you decide to make that, to like take that leap, take that step to just start, that is when, you'll be able to grow from that. Like if you just kind of like, debate it for for a while, like there's not going to be any growth. You're not going to continue to learn anything. You're not going to put in the effort because you haven't taken the step. Once you take that step, that's when you're like, okay, it got real. What do I do now? And so I would say proper training too, like the proper training for whatever it is, for whatever industry, the proper training is going to really give you the confidence to walk in this. Because that was a mistake that I made is I bought some random course online, but then I realized like that wasn't sufficient training. So like my first year of business, I did not sell a single thing my first year of business because I was super shy about what I did. And I was super shy about it because I knew that I didn't have the proper training. Once I got the proper training, then I had all this confidence. And then I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing now. And that's when my business decided to like really scale. So start, get some proper training. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Everybody does them. Every entrepreneur does them and they grow from it. And you know what? Like, if it doesn't work, do you know how many businesses like entrepreneurs have? They'll be like, oh yeah, I started this business and then I started this other business and then I started that business because that one didn't work out. The last three didn't work out. So then I started this business. Like they, there are so many things that like eventually could work out. So I would just say like, just do it, get some training, don't be afraid of mistakes. And if this one thing doesn't work out, maybe try another thing. There's no pressure. But if you're coming from a Christian perspective, pray, ask the Lord, right? Like he is good and faithful to guide us. And we can hear, he gives us all the confidence that like we can hear his voice as well. So let your heavenly Father guide you as well. I pray every day, all the time. Bless the work of my hands. Whatever that looks like. Bless the Lord, the work of my hands, Lord. And that doesn't have to look like you sell 10 million in travel every year. What does that look like for me? What does it look like for the Lord to bless the work of my hands? Um, but yeah, just start, just do it. I mean, I don't come, in a way, it's really funny that like I'm doing this because I don't come from a Christian background. I don't come from a business background. I don't come from like a travel background, right? My family didn't have money for this. And so the fact that I am in all of this is, the Lord's beautiful weaving of my story. But I put a lot of pressure on myself. Like, what if this doesn't work out? And my husband, who does come from business and finance, was like, so, like, well, then we'll try something else. And that took a lot of pressure off. So I was just say, yeah, just try it. Just try something.
Yeah, I think fear of failure can be a huge drawback for people to actually achieve success. And I think the a practical way to implement that is the minimum viable product, the MVP. And so what is the minimum viable product? And for some industries, it might not be that minimum. Like it might not be that minimal. It might actually be, you have to get a lot of training for it. But some, you might just be like, let me start with the smallest concept and to see if that sells. And if that sells, instead of having paralysis of entering a market because I got to make it perfect, if people like it at its minimum viable, um, the minimum viable reality of that product, if that works, if people are buying that, if people are interested in that, then you scale it. So what is the minimum viable idea that I can make of this product that I can sell to people? So that's a practical way to kind of think through, how do I enter the market and how do I get into it?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Like, if it's the travel industry, right? Like that's kind of how I started. I was like, I don't know how to make an entire itinerary, but I know how to book a hotel. So that's how I started. I was like, hotel only. Let's just start with hotel only. And then I got a full itinerary. Then somebody came to me. It's actually, the Lord is perfect in all his ways. The first complete itinerary that I did, and the first like real, like full, like hotel bookings that I did was to Thailand. But yeah, like you can start, if it's the travel industry, you can start that small for sure.
awesome. All right. Well, Deanna, so where can people find you and in that if they want to use you or if they want to learn if they want to work with you or if they want to learn from the master on how to do travel agency. So where can people find you and what's the best way they can reach you?
Yeah. I'm super active on Instagram, like I said. So my handle is literally like at Faroluna Travel. FAROLUNA I had to think about that for a while. So I'm really active there. And if you go to my Instagram, that will um get you to my website and you know where I am so sorry. I'm distracted by like cats behind me that are like fighting. Sorry. If you go to my Instagram, it will get you to my website, and that's where you'll be able to know like how to contact me. Where that's where my email shows up. You can also just hit me up on DMs. I've had people like contact me on TikTok DMs. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Deanna, thank you so much for joining us at the Gospel in the Grind. My name is Luke Anglin, and the purpose of this podcast, and I hope people listening, this is what they take away from it, is work is not antithetical to the kingdom of God. It's not either you serve the kingdom of God or you work. It's actually, if we don't have someone raising capital, I mean, that's the way God has designed us to fund ministry. So we need people who are in the arena, in the mission field, in the arena, in the workplace, but the point is to be in the arena. And if you're not in the arena, it doesn't matter what criticism you can give of people and how well you've thought through things. You're not in the arena. So get in there and do things for the kingdom of God. We have a great God. We serve a great God. So let's do great things for him. So Deanna, thank you so much. And I hope everyone will join us for the next episode.
Thank you for having me. This was such a fun and special
Yes.
conversation. Yeah, praise the
Yes.
Lord.
Praise the Lord. All right. Join us for the next episode.